When the Indiana Fever brought Stephanie White back to the franchise in November 2024, the vision seemed straightforward and promising. The team had the most electrifying young star in basketball, a coach with deep Indiana roots who had recently earned the WNBA Coach of the Year award, and a roster finally structured to compete at a high level. Everything appeared aligned. Hope surged across Indianapolis as fans imagined a new era of relevance, success, and stability. But fast forward to the present, and the conversation around White has shifted dramatically. Instead of discussing her leadership growth or the Fever's upward trajectory, her job security has become one of the most divisive topics in Fever Nation. The turning point, one that no one could have forecasted, was Caitlin Clark's season-ending groin injury just 13 games into the 2025 campaign. Up to that point, everything had been trending upward. Clark was producing at her usual elite level. Teammates were benefiting from her court vision and spacing, and White's system was beginning to settle into place. But once Clark went down, the Fever's season unraveled in ways that exposed structural weaknesses throughout the roster.
And Coach, your team was up by 5 after the first quarter. Then the game flipped in the second quarter. What do you want your team to get back to doing here in the second half?
Well, first and foremost, we got to take better care of the ball. I think we had 6 turnovers in that second quarter and got a little frantic in that 11-0 run that ended that second quarter.
Stephanie White's roots run deep in Indiana basketball, and her connection to the state has always shaped her identity as a coach. A proud Purdue alum, she cut her teeth on the hardwood in her college days, learning not just the fundamentals of the game, but also the intangible lessons of leadership, work ethic, and community loyalty. After graduating, she returned to the professional ranks, first serving as the Fever's head coach from 2015 to 2016. That initial stint, while brief, gave her insight into the organization and the expectations that come with leading a team in Indiana, a state where basketball isn't just a sport, but a culture that pervades everyday life. When she left the Fever to join the Connecticut Sun, she didn't leave quietly. Instead, she transformed the program into a powerhouse, taking a team with middling performance and turning it into a championship contender. Her efforts were recognized in 2023 when she was awarded WNBA Coach of the Year.
And obviously kind of participated in team activities here for the first time. Just how is she progressing and how is this a good step?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good step because she got out there on the floor with us for the first time, part of the, sort of return to activity thing. But it was all very low maintenance, 5-on-0.
Even with the initial optimism surrounding Stephanie White's return, it became clear early on that success would not come without challenges. While many fans agreed that White's hiring represented an upgrade, the process by which it occurred had left lingering resentment. The abrupt replacement of Christie sides, paired with the preemptive rumors of White's arrival, created an undercurrent of skepticism that would linger throughout the season. Critics questioned whether White could truly command the respect of a roster molded under another coach, or whether the high expectations might overwhelm her return. However, supporters were quick to point out her proven track record, a coach with extensive experience, deep knowledge of Indiana basketball, and a recent Coach of the Year award to validate her capabilities. They argued that White had the credibility, strategic mind, and leadership skills required to elevate the Fever, provided she had time and a healthy roster to work with. The season opened with genuine excitement and anticipation. Caitlin Clark, fresh off a historic rookie campaign, appeared energized and prepared to continue her rapid development. With a fully healthy offseason, White implemented her system, focused on ball movement, spacing, and exploiting Clark's offensive brilliance. Early games showcased Clark's talent as she orchestrated the offense, hitting shots from distances that seemed improbable and distributing the ball with precision. Fans were energized by the combination of White's strategy and Clark's execution, and for a short while, it felt as if Indiana had positioned itself as a legitimate contender in the league. The Fever's supporting cast also began to show signs of adapting to White's system. New additions complemented Clark's style, and returning players began to understand the spacing and movement required. White experimented with rotations and lineups designed to maximize both offensive efficiency and defense.
But I think that's even been something like me and Steph have always talk about when we go and watch film, and even that New York game where I played really, really well. I started the fourth quarter off with 3 turnovers in a row or 2 turnovers in a row, and Steph yanked me, and she was like this is a learning moment. Do we need that in this moment? No. Right. And then she subbed me back in. There was a play where I kind of got a steal.
As the season progressed, the Indiana Fever appeared to be finding their rhythm. Stephanie White's system was gradually taking shape, and the team's chemistry seemed to improve with each game. Practices reflected a growing understanding of spacing, ball movement, and defensive rotations. Clark remained the centerpiece of the offense, consistently delivering the kind of performances that had made her a household name. It was evident that White's coaching philosophy relied heavily on her star player, building offensive sets and defensive strategies around Clark's unique skill set. For the first 13 games, everything seemed to be progressing according to plan. The Fever were competitive night after night, and Clark's leadership on the court created opportunities for her teammates to shine. In July, the team achieved a significant milestone by capturing the Commissioner's Cup. Although not equivalent to a championship, this trophy was a symbol of progress and promise. The victories leading up to the win showcased the team's ability to execute under pressure and compete against formidable opponents. White's messaging, focused on discipline, teamwork, and executing the fundamentals, was clearly resonating with the players. For a brief period, it seemed as though the Fever were well-positioned to make a deep playoff run, and the city of Indianapolis embraced the optimism surrounding the team. The combination of a promising young roster, a proven coach, and a star player at the peak of her abilities created a potent mixture that could have propelled Indiana toward championship contention. But just as hope was reaching its peak, disaster struck.
You said on Wednesday that there were some things you liked, some things you didn't like about the Aerie, Caitlin, like double point starting lineup. Just with working with that the past couple days, is that something you're planning to continue today?
No, we're going to go back to our original starting lineup today. That was also something specific to Golden State.
The injury to Caitlin Clark had immediate and profound repercussions for the Indiana Fever. With their franchise players sidelined, the team faced the daunting task of navigating the remainder of the season without the very core around which the entire roster had been constructed. For Stephanie White, this meant confronting a new reality. A squad built to thrive alongside Clark now had to find ways to function independently. Practices, drills, and game strategies required significant modification. White had to adjust on the fly, reworking offensive sets, redefining defensive assignments, and finding ways to optimize the talents of players who had previously been secondary options. The challenge was immense. Clark's absence did not merely remove a player, it removed the axis around which the entire offense revolved. White's frustration was palpable, and perhaps understandably so. This was her first season back with the Fever, and she was tasked with coaching a team that had been specifically tailored to maximize Clark's abilities. Yet she had barely experienced a full season with her star before that critical injury struck. The team's spacing and timing, previously orchestrated with Clark at the center, collapsed. Plays that once flowed effortlessly now ended in hurried shots, turnovers, and missed opportunities. Teammates who had relied on Clark's gravity to create space suddenly found themselves confronted with tightly packed defenses. The rhythm that had defined the Fever's early season performances was gone, replaced with a struggle to maintain cohesion and identity. In response, White experimented extensively with rotations and lineups, attempting to discover combinations that could compensate for the void left by Clark. She distributed responsibilities more broadly, giving increased minutes to players who had previously played supporting roles. Bench players were asked to step into starting roles, while seasoned veterans were tasked with stabilizing the team's performance. Despite her strategic ingenuity, the results were uneven. The absence of Clark's playmaking and scoring power exposed deficiencies that had been previously concealed, and opponents capitalized on these weaknesses. The Fever became a team in transition, struggling to adapt while still attempting to compete at a high level. Even under these challenging circumstances, White managed to guide the team through the rest of the regular season with some measure of success. The Fever finished with a record of 24 wins and 20 losses, a performance that, on paper, was respectable given the circumstances.
Steph, when watching Caitlin, when she has a little bit of a mini slump for her with three-pointers, are there things you see or even talk to her about it, or you just sort of know she's going to shoot her way out of that?
Well, I think she's going to find her way out of it. Now, we've got to get her easier ones.
As the regular season concluded and the Fever prepared for the playoffs, the intensity of scrutiny surrounding Stephanie White escalated sharply. Fans, initially patient and hopeful, began to express frustration and disappointment in increasingly vocal ways. Social media platforms, especially Twitter, became a battleground for opinions, critiques, and pointed commentary. The team's struggles in Clark's absence had left visible cracks in performance, and supporters who had once embraced White's return now questioned her every decision. The critical lens through which her coaching was examined magnified even minor mistakes into headline-worthy controversies. Rotation choices, substitution patterns, and late-game strategies were all dissected with relentless precision. One recurring point of contention among fans was the perceived mismanagement of player minutes. Certain athletes who had performed efficiently during games found themselves on the bench, while others were granted extended opportunities despite less impressive statistical output. White's choices were questioned repeatedly, particularly in close contests where timing and execution were critical. Late game calls, decisions on who would handle the ball, when to push tempo, and which plays to run, became focal points of criticism. Losses that might otherwise have been viewed as circumstantial were reframed as evidence of inadequate leadership. This wave of scrutiny highlighted the challenges inherent in professional coaching. Every decision is examined, every outcome judged, and every failure magnified. The management of Lexi Hull, a promising young player, became emblematic of the fan base's frustration. Many observers believed Hull had untapped potential and that White had not maximized her contributions. Every missed opportunity for Hull became an additional talking point, compounding the narrative that White was unable to optimize her roster. Whether these criticisms were entirely fair is debatable, but perception often outweighs nuance in sports fandom. Once a story, real or imagined, takes hold, it becomes difficult to counteract. White's credibility and authority were under fire, with fan sentiment increasingly questioning her capacity to lead.
Are you trying to get me fined again?
I am not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. You know, I knew it as an opponent, and I see it as her coach. And you know, I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is.
The real intensity of the scrutiny towards Stephanie White reached its peak in August, during a particularly brutal stretch of the season. Over 5 games, the Fever lost 4, creating a firestorm among fans and critics alike. Social media became a relentless arena of criticism, where frustration and impatience were expressed in stark, unfiltered terms. Followers who had previously given White the benefit of the doubt were no longer willing to temper their expectations. The collective voice of Fever Nation grew increasingly sharp, often boiling over into outright condemnation. One fan tweeted, "I'm officially done with the Fever. Stephanie White is a horrible coach," while another wrote, "Stephanie White isn't the coach to lead this team to a championship." These were far from isolated remarks. They were reflective of a broader perception that White was struggling to navigate her responsibilities effectively. The dissatisfaction was not solely emotional. It was analytical, focused on specific aspects of her coaching performance. Criticism centered on several recurring themes. Fans questioned her rotation decisions, wondering why certain players who appeared more productive during games received fewer minutes, while others were favored. Late-game strategy was another focal point. Fans scrutinized her play calling in high-pressure moments, especially in games that were lost narrowly. The handling of Lexi Hull drew particular ire. Many supporters believed Hull's potential had been underutilized, and every perceived missed opportunity intensified the narrative that White's coaching decisions were flawed. Whether these criticisms were entirely justified became almost irrelevant. Once a negative perception solidified among fans, it was extremely difficult to reverse. This is a recurring reality in professional sports, where perception often matters as much, if not more, than performance itself. The complexity of White's situation cannot be overstated. Losing Caitlin Clark for the majority of the season created a scenario that few coaches could navigate successfully. Clark was not only the Fever's leading scorer, she was the fulcrum of their entire offensive system. Her presence affected spacing, shot selection, and defensive matchups. Without her, White was forced to rebuild strategies, shuffle lineups, and attempt to maintain team cohesion with a roster suddenly operating outside its intended framework. The challenge required exceptional skill, adaptability, and composure. White's task was immense, preserving competitiveness while compensating for the absence of the league's most transformative player.